I'm here with Randall Brooks, Vice President of Business Development and Training at APS, and I'm here to ask him a few questions about loss of control in flight and upset prevention and recovery training. Okay, could you discuss why loss of control in flight and UPRT are rapidly developing and changing subject areas?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is that we've seen that the statistics indicating that loss of control in flight is the leading threat in aviation in terms of the cause of fatalities, really for every sector of aviation and around the world, has continued for some period of time now, several decades, and so there's been a lot of people looking into it because of that. I think when we evaluate why that is, a lot of it stems from the fact that we train most professional pilots through flight simulation, which is the biggest contribution that we've ever had in aviation safety, the use of flight simulators, but they do have some limitations when it comes to teaching loss of control in flight and upset recovery, which are really twofold. The first is technical. It's due to the limitations of the aero model that don't allow it to accurately replicate what the airplane is going to do, how the airplane is going to behave in an aircraft upset. It may just make the airplane look as though the recovery is going to be more benign than it would really be, and in some cases it can actually create inappropriate or incorrect responses from the flight simulator when out of the normal envelope. The second part of that, and I think this is even a bigger part, is the increasing realization that human factors response for pilots in upsets is really limited by the use of flight simulation, because the brain simply does not work quite the same way when you're training in a simulator that's bolted to the ground versus how that is going to happen in the real world. And for that we use on-aircraft training so that pilots are training in the same domain and are going to understand the physiology, certainly the elevated G, but also the reduced G, as well as the cognitive impact of being in these severe situations are going to have, and are going to be able to learn a structured and methodical response in those situations that will help get them past the surprise, startle effects, and the reality factor of being in a life-threatening situation.
Can you discuss the UPR guidance that has been created or changed in the last 4 to 5 years?
Yeah, most of the recent changes in guidance stemmed from a couple of accidents in 2009, Colgan 3407 and Air France 447. As we started looking into that, we realized that there were some changes that were necessary in terms of how pilots were trained to recover from stalls in particular. And so there was a aviation rulemaking committee here in the United States, the loss of control avoidance and recovery training ARC. It actually made the recommendation that all pilots should receive upset prevention and recovery training in actual flight, as they put it, to clarify that they were talking about in an aircraft prior to commercial licensing. Now that Aviation Rulemaking Committee was held in Montreal at the headquarters for ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. ICAO, based on those recommendations and the testimony that they saw during that committee, changed the licensing standards for all commercial pilots worldwide, recommending that they receive UPRT prior to commercial licensing. Since that time, the FAA has updated their guidance for airline transport pilots, who now are supposed to receive a component of upset prevention recovery training, albeit in a simulator. And also they've come out with Advisory Circular 120-111 on upset prevention recovery training in 2015.
Could you talk about APS's involvement with various levels of loss of control in flight and UPRT conversations and their input in the current guidance, incorporating best practices and recent advancements?
Certainly. We got involved in that first when the Royal Aeronautical Society created a standing committee called ICATI, the International Committee for Aviation Training and Extended Envelopes. We were participants in that. That took place over a period of several years. And then we worked with ICAO in drafting their document 111, the manual on aeroplane upset prevention recovery training. We helped with the initial draft of that. We had 2 executives from APS that participated in the FAA Industry Stall Stick Pusher Working Group, The product of that is what we now know as Advisory Circular 120-109A on stall training, and that removed the minimum loss of altitude as an objective criteria in stall training. So those are just some of the things that we've done in the past. We're involved in ongoing discussions regarding airman certification standards towards stall, and other discussions with the FAA on how to incentivize upset prevention and recovery training to try and expand the number of pilots that receive that training and the benefits of it.
Okay. Attending APS for current training allows pilots to stay on top of the safest and most effective concepts and techniques in upset prevention and recovery. Can you expand on that?
Sure. We know for all types of flying, whether it's flying at night, instrument approaches, landings, that all of these are perishable skills, and they require currency to remain at the top of our proficiency. Well, that's certainly true for upset recovery, and in fact that's not a skill that we're practicing on a regular basis, and so it's something that's worth visiting every 2 to 3 years. And because APS is focused expressly in this domain of flying, we keep our ears to the ground on terms of all of the best practices. We're implementing new concepts of crew resource management, threat and error management, active monitoring. As those subjects come out, we integrate them with what we've done in the past to make sure that everything that we're teaching is the most up-to-date and current. And by pilots coming back through recurrent training, they get the benefit of that. We have modified the strategies that we teach at APS several times over the years, and we'll continue to do that to make sure that it is the most practical, useful, and effective techniques that are available for helping to recover any kind of fixed-wing aircraft from an unexpected upset.
All right, sounds great. Thanks a lot for your time, Randy.
Thank you, Colin.